been with OSPN for a while. And my history in martial arts, I was just telling Glenn today, I was thinking, actually will be 50 years next year. I started my first year of university in 1971. I started in my martial art of Taekwondo, which is a Korean martial art. So it'll be 50 years next year. Along the way, I've gone through various aspects of the art. You know, you can specialize in different things. Of course, I took part in tournaments when I was younger, and for a while specialized in breaking. And you know, we always have the aspect of self-defense, which is part of any martial art, but also very much in tune with your martial art. And we tend to think of the very physical aspect of it is the mental aspect of every martial art. And so that made me think when I was looking and putting together this course, keeping in mind that you know, it's not as easy to give a virtual course on self-defense. We, you know, because of the situation, and hopefully down the road, once we get control of COVID and people can then intermingle, we'll do the course again in person. But we can at least, I can at least show and give information that can be still of help to individuals. And that is why I'm going to breaking this into 2 sessions. This first session tonight, we will be concentrating entirely on the mental aspect of self-defense, your mental aspect of how you view yourself day to day in public, etc. And all those things that come together, which are as equally important as the physical of self-defense. Self-defense is not just purely the physical, it's also the mental and the your how you view yourself and view the world around you. There are 3 very specific aspects of self-defense that help to generate a strong and positive mental and psychological aspect of the art. And these things you have to keep in mind each and every day. It's not a matter of being paranoid. It's not a matter of, you know, dwelling on something. It's just simple things that you can train yourself to think of each day. For example, the first thing which we've heard of many, many times over the years is the fight or flight mechanism. When something happens, an emergency, you know, we've often heard of people with extreme bursts of strength to help release a loved one from being pinned under something heavy that normally they would not have been able to do. And that is that massive surge of adrenaline that we get in an emergency or a crisis, coupled with the mind saying, you can do this. We all are capable of doing much more physically than we think we are. And that is an example of when you're in a situation where there is an emergency and there's a flow of adrenaline which lasts for a very short period of time, you're able to actually carry off some of these things that you wouldn't be able to. So the whole idea of the self-defense aspect of fight and or flight is to fight. And that is to shock your attackers so quickly because they're not expecting it, with that burst of energy, that specific move you may use or a weapon you may use to scare them quickly enough that you can do what you have to do and then leave the scene. So that's the fight instead of the turning and trying to run or trying to get away or panicking. The fight is in place of the panicking, because when you panic, you don't accomplish anything. We often make fun of the horror movies that we see, you know, the woman in the house and there's somebody in there, a monster, whatever, Freddy Krueger, and she runs upstairs and hides in a bedroom instead of going out the door. Most people do that. Most people will run to where they feel comfortable, and people feel comfortable in their bedroom. And when you're panicking, that takes over. So you run up the stairs away from help and into the bedroom. So that's not all that unreal. The second aspect is fear, fear itself. fear of, how do I view myself? Do I view myself as a victim all the time? Sometimes we aren't even aware of the fears we have, and even less aware as to whether or not they're even validated. People being afraid to walk down a street or go outside or go into a crowd without stopping to think, well, how often has I heard of somebody in Ottawa, going to a dinner and being attacked, or things of that nature. Sometimes our fears are born out of what we hear and see on TV, what we see in the media, and that gets transposed into our own psychic of, oh my God, I can't go outside. People are being shot. Yeah, people are being shot, but it's probably not the people you hang around with. It might be gang members, or things of that nature. So the whole idea of, if you have something that frightens you, the best way to deal with that is to confront that fear and see, how logical is it? Very often it's not very logical. And the third, from the fight and flight and the fear, is being aware, knowing your surroundings. This is a big part of self-defense. In other words, don't put yourself in situations where you endanger yourself. Know where you're at, rather than walking down an alley to make a shortcut, walk down the main street where everybody else is walking. One of the things, that you can always be aware of is your surroundings. It doesn't mean you have to be paranoid, but when you're anywhere, you can view what's around you, see who's around you, what's going on around you. So be aware of your area. So I'm going to get into a little more detail on each one of those. For example, the fight or flight. And I said the element of surprise. If somebody is attacking you, first of all, usually an attacker is very much like a bully. They're pretty much a coward because they've singled you out. We see programs on TV where lions and animals of prey single out the weak in a group. They will look and see who they think is the target, the weakest target. So it might be the person who's acting very meek. It might be the person who maybe has a limp because they sprained their ankle. It might be anything, but they've singled you out because they think they can overpower you. And that's the whole aspect of bullying. Somebody who thinks you're not going to retaliate. So the fight aspect is your surprise to that person. And that's that instant flow where they grab you and you react. You react right away. You react effectively, efficiently, quickly, and you disable them and then you leave. You don't hang around. The thing is, that person attacked you. You have every right to defend yourself. Don't feel sorry for them if in that few motions of defending yourself, you hurt them really bad. In fact, you may do mortal damage, but it's better to them than to you because you have absolutely no idea what they're planning, whether they're trying to rape you, whether they're trying to beat you up, whether they're planning to stab you. You do not have a chance and don't have time to go through a list of questions with them like, what are you going to do to me? The whole purpose of self-defense is to defend yourself. So that element of surprise will take people off guard very, very quickly. And you only need a few seconds to do that. When we get into the next session, which I'll be showing actual techniques, everything takes just a few seconds to do. We will be going into areas where how to hit people, where to hit people, things like that, what to use. But it's only a few seconds. It's not a matter of belaboring the issue. Like I said, it's a matter of reacting. And as I said before, we are all physically stronger than we think. It's just that day to day, we don't have to use that. We are not weaklings. We have survived for a reason, be a survivor. Go through life thinking of yourself as a survivor. We in our community are survivors. We've survived a lot over the years. We've just survived discrimination. We've survived bullying. We've survived all kinds of things. We survived the AIDS epidemic. We are survivors. So we have every right to take that, to make it part of us, and to live that every day as a survivor. And as I said, you have every right to defend yourself. From the aspect of fear, we don't want to live our lives in fear. There's no need to live our lives in fear. We can be aware of what's going on in the world. We all know there's horrible things that can happen. There's also a lot of good things that happen in the world. We see people helping each other every day. We see people going out of their way to make sacrifices for people. That far outshines the gang member who shoots his friend down in the market or whatever. So the idea of living in fear takes away all the good in our life and all the positive things that help to make that strong psychological human being that you want to be. Don't present yourself as a victim. For example, when you're walking down the street, how many times have you seen, say, a person, could be a guy, it could be a woman, sort of walking, looking at the ground, not sort of looking at people. If somebody has a purse, they're clutching their purse in like this, they're walking, instant victim. That is the weakling that the predator sees in the herd and said, okay, that person is just waiting to be attacked. Walk down the street, present yourself wherever you are with confidence. Hold yourself up, hold your head up, and just let people know that you are a confident individual, that you are aware that you're a confident individual, and show that you are not a victim. A lot of people, as I mentioned, aren't even sure what they're afraid of. Um, and that's so easy to happen today with our mass media. When people actually sit down and think of, well, what is it that frightens me on a day-to-day basis? They very often they can't come up with anything specific unless something specific has happened to them in the past. So, I mean, just the idea of falling into that whole, general sphere of it's a frightening world out there. Some parts of it are. The majority of our world is not frightening out there. Our age does not determine a fear factor. Just because we're getting older doesn't mean that we have to be afraid. We don't have to be afraid of the younger generation. We don't have to be afraid of technology. We don't have to be afraid of being part of society. We've earned our right to be part of society. Through our age, we have lived life experiences. We have a lot to give. So therefore, our age should never, ever, ever be looked at as an impediment to our existence and to impart fear on our behalf. And as I mentioned, most attackers are cowards. In fact, I'd say all attackers are cowards, are bullies which are cowards. They want to try to take the fastest, easiest route to an attack, to overpower somebody who they think they can beat. So remember that person is hoping that you're going to scream, faint, freeze, panic. When you turn the tables instantly, automatically, the ball is then in your court. When I mentioned the idea of knowing your surroundings, I also mentioned like that doesn't mean you have to be paranoid. It means being aware. Two different things. Every time, I mean, and I've done this all my life since I started training. When I go anywhere, I'm aware of what's around me. If I go to one of our dances, if I go to a dinner, if I go to a restaurant, if I go to a big gathering, first thing I do, I look around the room, I see where the exits are in case there's an emergency. I just put it in my mind. While I'm there, I'm not constantly, but every now and then, I'm aware of what's going on in the room. I'm aware of if there's anything very different going on in the room, something that's not normal, something that looks to be perhaps could escalate to a negative situation. Just being aware, whether it's out of the corner of your eye or you're watching something directly, you just be aware of what's happening around you. The same as when you're walking down the street. Be aware of what's going on around you. If you see a disturbance up ahead of you, then cross the street. Don't put your head down and think that you can sneak by, because then you're only asking for trouble. You can't even see where you're going. You've blocked the disturbance out because you're looking down at the sidewalk, and anything could happen without you knowing it. Another good thing is when you're walking down the street, especially at night, if there's not a lot of people on the street and you're walking in front of stores and the stores have big windows, keep an eye on the windows. They're a mirror. At nighttime, store windows are like a mirror. You can see, especially if the store is closed, you can see what's going on around you, so you can see if somebody's coming up behind you or coming across the street from you. Just be aware of what's going on around you. Don't set yourself up for attack. Avoid isolated areas. Avoid areas where there's not a lot of traffic or not a lot of people, even if it's a convenience thing. When you are out, try to be where the crowd is or where the more people are. Don't, the introvert may try to, isolate themselves away from people. It's not a good idea to do that. It's a better idea to be where at least where some of the group are. And as I said, let people around you know that you are aware, that you are taking in what's around you, that you are confident. Don't play the role of being the meek victim. That doesn't help anybody anytime. The whole purpose of, self-defense is to react quickly, react efficiently, do what you have to do, and then leave and go get help. Go, if you have a cell phone, you can leave to a safe place, call 911 and say, this is what just happened. As I said, when that happens, don't stay there. If somebody has attacked you, once they're down, leave and find people or find an area where you can phone for help. So we then get into some of the more practical aspects of self-defense. Now, those are very important. Those very important psychological aspects of self-defense. So what can you use to defend yourself? So let's look at our human body. Our human body itself is a weapon. We have all kinds of weapons. First of all, one of the things we use the most are hands. The palm of your hand, arching your hand that way and striking somebody with the palm of your hand, you've got the full power of your arm behind you. If you go up to the chin, if you go up to the nose, anybody who has hit their nose even slightly, but especially if you've been hit in the nose because you're playing baseball or football, or you tripped and fell down the stairs, or turned and ran into the door, you hit your nose, your vision goes right away. Your eyes start watering, your nose starts bleeding. Right away, you're no good. So if somebody has been hit in the nose, you've hit somebody, they're probably, and you hit them and you don't have to be that strong to drive your palm up to somebody's nose. They're gone. They're no good. So the palm of the hand is good. But the fist also, we're used, people used to fists. It's how you use your fist. Your fist, again, is like a club at the end of a very strong pole. Most people, though, don't know how to make a proper fist. If sometimes you would see, I can remember in old movies, but I've seen it in real life from where I was brought up, two guys having a fist fight, and the loser might be knocked out, but the winner is walking away with a broken hand. And think, okay, how did that happen? It's very easy how that happened. When you make a fist, you should only be striking with those two knuckles. Those two knuckles are braced by the hand, the bones in the hand, and the arm, the main bones in the arm. These little two knuckles are not. They're only braced by the hand. They don't have a good backing from the arm, so that if a person strikes and they aren't paying attention and they strike with those two knuckles with a good force, they're going to break their knuckles. Whereas if you strike with those knuckles, that's where the impact is. And the way you make a fist is you curl your fingers in towards the palm and you put your thumb under them so that your fist is straight up and down. Straight wrist, straight up and down to hit with those knuckles. What you don't do is this. You just lay your fingers on your palm. Instead of curling them, you lay them like that and leave your thumb out here. First of all, you're going to break your thumb every time, And the other thing is I've seen people do this, put their thumb inside and then curl their fingers over it. Again, you're going to break your thumb every time. So you make a good fist, and whether you're making a haymaker from way down here or straight on, you aim with those two knuckles. Another part of your fist is like a hammer. We call it the hammer strikes. You make a proper fist, but you're going to hit with this part here, right there, the fleshy part here. It's very strong. It's coming down like a hammer. You know, you can come down on the bridge of the nose. You can hit with enough force with a hammer blow to break a collarbone. And collarbones can break real easy. I've had mine broken more than once from playing rugby and from martial arts. Collarbones can snap like anything, but a good hammer fist down on somebody's collarbone every time, and certainly on the nose. Nails, if you have nails, make use of them. Straight to the eyes. Straight to the eyes. Don't even think twice. Straight, poke their eyes right in, or take them out. You can go up. It's very easy to go up under the eyelids and out, but I mean, just poking somebody in the eyes, they're gone right away. Poking somebody with fingers right to the throat, or up under here, right under here. Just grab them right under there, and they are at your mercy, and squeeze. Your elbows are like battering rams. They're all bone. So if you're in close to a person and they think they've got the advantage, you know, elbow them in the ribs, you know, elbow them up under the chin, you know. If they're behind you, elbow them behind you. We'll be getting more into the very specifics of these moves in the second session. But your elbow is a good weapon. Your knees are also much like your elbows. It's a joint, you know, a knee to the groin, a knee to the floating rib, because the floating rib doesn't connect to the sternum. It stops. It's connected to your spine, like the rest of them. But the last rib is the floating rib, and it's not connected to the sternum. So very often when people break a rib, especially in sports, it's the floating rib, and it breaks real easily. And then, of course, your feet. A good kick to the groin, a good kick to the shins. Shins hurt. A good swift kick to the shins really works. A good kick to the knees. If the person's standing straight who's attacking you, facing you, and you take your foot and just drive it straight into the knee, that knee has no place to go but break, because it bends forward, not backward. So if you push it backward, you're probably going to break the knee, which is going to end everything right there. So the other thing is using your feet on somebody else's foot, whether they've got you like this in a hug or from behind you. Take your shoe, take your heel, and come down as hard as you can on their instep. Those bones, the metatarsals, are really not very strong. And a good foot down on will break it every time. If you have any type of a heel on your boot, whether it's a work boot or a snowshoe, even a pair of sneakers, you still come down with your heel on top of the instep, and it will put the person down every time. What sort of things can you use as a weapon instead of your body? Well, there's all kinds of things that we very often have with us. So many people, men and women, carry backpacks. Lots of women carry purses, big purses. And usually when we carry backpacks and purses, we have all kinds of stuff in them. Use it as a weapon, swing it, use it. And don't be afraid to swing it. Swing it to the head, swing it to the ribs. Use it as a weapon to keep them away. Even if a person's attacking you and you put up a fight and you aren't letting them near you, they're going to very quickly say, okay, I got to get out of here before help starts coming. So something like a backpack or a purse, a cane. Anybody who has a cane, use that cane. Use the cane to strike the face, to strike the head, to strike the throat, to strike the ribs, to strike the groin. Use the end of it to go right into the solar plexus. Use it as a bat, you know, use the cane. Keys, you know, we very often in self-defense, we tell anybody, whether men or women, if you have a set of keys, put some of the keys between your fingers, hold, you know, the rest of the keys in your palm, and use it with a punch. Let the keys do the work. They're sticking out, protruding from the fingers. Strike to the throat, strike to the solar plexus, you know, because the solar plexus is that where it controls your breathing. Some people still carry mace. In some places it's illegal, but in other places it isn't. But if you don't want to carry mace, something that people don't stop to think to carry is black pepper. You all know the little jars, the little bottles of spices you get in the store with black pepper. You can get them with either with the plastic cap that has small holes in it or bigger holes, or you can take the plastic cap off, put the cover on and carry it with you. And if you feel that somebody's coming towards you, aggressively, or somebody's acting aggressive, just very nonchalantly unscrew the cap. And the minute they lay a hand on you, throw the pepper in their face. Just take it and push it. And you can even blow as you're throwing it right up the nose, into the eyes. They are no good after that. They're sneezing, their eyes are hurting. Black pepper is very, very effective. So where do you strike when somebody attacks you? What are the vulnerable spots on the body? Again, just like there's so many spots on the body that you can use as a weapon, there are equally spots where you can be hurt. So we'll start with the nose. As I said, the bridge of the nose. We all know the nose is not bone, it's cartilage, and it breaks real easily, So if you come down on the nose with anything, be it a fist or, or a backpack, whatever, the nose starts bleeding, your eyes start watering, you can't see what's going on, and that gives the person time to go away. The throat, as I said, a good punch to the throat, a fist to the throat. If you have something in your hand, and you hit the throat right away, it's going to stop the person because they're going to, of course, be trying to breathe, So it's the tempo, a good fist into the tempo, or a hammer fist into the tempo, Or, as I said, taking your hands, arching your hands. If somebody drags you into them and your hands are free, swoop, both palms right into the ears. If your ears have ever been boxed by your parents, it rings. It throws the liquid in the semicircular canals inside right off. Your balance is gone. But if you take full force on both of those ears, it's going to cause the person's ears to start ringing and their balance is going to be gone. The eyes, as I said, whether you punch the person in the eye or stick them in the eyes are very, very vulnerable. The solar plexus. Now I mentioned those. The solar plexus, right here, right that spot right there, where the diaphragm is. The diaphragm, of course, controls our breathing. When we breathe in and when we breathe out, it either comes up or it goes down. And what you do is if you hit somebody with a good fist in the diaphragm, it couples the diaphragm, and that's why you hear them say, I lost my breath, I lost my wind. It's because they can't breathe, because the diaphragm is sort of coupled, gone in the wrong direction that it was planning. And so you can't get that breath out until you're able to relax and the diaphragm starts working again. So a good elbow back to the diaphragm, a cane, the end of a cane into the diaphragm, automatically cut your breathing off. The kidneys. Kidneys are very sensitive. If you're able to get around an attacker, even if you trip them and then you get around behind them, give them a good kick or a good punch right to the kidneys. That hurts like hell. Those, right into that back area. Anytime if you've ever hit yourself, fallen or ran up against something and you hit your kidneys, it can really, really hurt. The stomach, of course, you can give a good solid punch to a stomach and that hurts. The stomach is strong because the stomach, of course, churns up our food. So it has very strong muscles. It has horizontal, longitudinal, and striated muscles so that it can churn food. But it's also a very delicate organ, and with a good solid kick, a good solid cane, a good solid anything, you can really put a person down. The ribs I mentioned, the ribs are right there. They're like spare ribs, a good elbow to the ribs, any solid hit to the ribs can break a rib. It's so easy to break a rib, whether you fall, whether you're playing sports, it's really, really easy to break a rib. But it's also really easy to hurt the ribs. They don't have to be broken. They can be bruised, and a bruised rib can hurt just as much. I've had that in martial arts where you are hit in the rib, and those intercostal muscles in between the ribs, like spare ribs, they get bruised, and the nerve endings, because it's very, very the meat in between there is very fine, and the nerve endings are very close to the surface. It hurts. It hurts almost as much as if you broke the rib. Every time you go to breathe, you lift your rib cage, and it's hurting. So you don't have to break the ribs to really be effective to hurt them. As I mentioned, the knee. If you can strike a knee so that you're pushing it back, it has no place to go but to break. And because it's a joint, it can be, although it can be strong to hit with it, it can be weak to be hit because of that. The shins, shins hurt. Kick somebody in the shins, it's going to hurt every time. And the instep. I said, the bones on the top of the foot, one instance I related to, I think, to Glenn. I was at the gym one time, this is some years ago, and it was a Sunday morning, and there's a couple guys who were, lifting weights. They hadn't been there before. You get to know the people who come in, and of course they were trying to be impressive to a couple of the young women that were there, and of course they were trying to lift as much weight as they could, and they weren't doing it properly anyway, but they were also picking up the plates, the big round plates to put onto the bar to do bench presses. And they're talking, and they're trying to be noticed by the girls, and one of them wasn't paying attention, and he picked up a 45-pound weight. It's about that thick, it's round, and he wasn't paying attention, and he stumbled and he dropped it, and the edge of it went right down through his foot. It just went straight to the floor, just smashed the foot. Of course, his buddy who was there passed out. He was no help. The other girls, they just took off, and we were lucky because one of the women that I worked out there, and she was there all the time, she was a nurse, and Brenda was, I called her the Amazon, because she lifted weights, and she had been around. So right away, she took over, and we called the 911 and the ambulance. But literally, when I looked, the weight had just completely smashed the foot right to the floor, And so, so if you come down on an instep with all the weight of your leg and a heel, you're going to do some damage to the foot. The other thing you might want to think of doing, because sometimes people are attacked in home, and if somebody breaks into that, think of something that you would have in one or two of your rooms. The kitchen, obviously in the kitchen, there could be something like a knife, in the holders. There's all kinds of things in the kitchen, big frying pan, something that you can use as a weapon that you always know where it's at and can get at it real quick. You might have something in your living room that's, you have all kinds of knickknacks, but something that's heavy enough light enough that you can pick it up and wield it, but heavy enough that it can give a blow. And then you might have something in the bedroom, just something that you can use as a weapon, even a fold-up chair, like a folding chair, because what you might find yourself doing is just keeping the person away from you, frustrating them enough that they give up and say, oh, I got to get out of here, But that's, something you can think of. All of this, from the beginning to the end of this particular session, is preparing yourself psychologically. And just, I've learned to live over the years of just being in the frame of mind of my martial arts. I'm always aware, whether I'm in the airport, always aware of what's going on in an airport if I'm sitting there. If I'm on the train or the bus, as I said, if I'm at a dance, I'm aware of what's going on around me, and the first time I see anything that's out of the ordinary, I just focus on that just to see. It may not be nothing, it may pass, or if I see it escalating, then I know. Be ready for something, either be ready to help people get out of the way, or, it's the idea of, the person in an airport, all of a sudden somebody goes berserk and is running towards people with a knife, or hopefully they didn't get through with a knife, but anywhere, rather than running, that person's going to expect everybody to start fleeing and falling and making themselves victims. In the chaos, I will maneuver myself such that I'll be able to attack that person without them even seeing me, because they're going to be concentrating on a whole area. I'm going to be concentrating on one, that's them. And what can I do? What can I use as a weapon? Can I pick up a chair? Can I take it after them? Can I trip them? All I have to do is trip somebody, you know? But the idea is just psychologically, mentally, be self-defensive in that aspect. And then the physical will come, because you will have that instantaneous flow of adrenaline and that time to fight instead of flight and not panic. So that's it for this first session. The next session, I'm going to get into very specifics of how to attack, you know, different means of attacking the same area, different ways to attack with the same part of the body or the same weapon. But between now and then, I want you to think and keep your mind in the sphere of those three things: fight or flight, the whole aspect of fear, and being aware. So thank you.